those of you on Facebook Live and YouTube, welcome to the Home Spiritual Center Sunday service for July 7th, 2024. Our opening prayer. Thank God for the blessings of this day. We have been provided with more than we could ever have imagined. We are surrounded with people who always look out for one another. We have family and friends who are blessing every day with their kind words and actions. And they lift us up in ways that keep our eyes focused on the light and make our spirits soar with spiritual love. Thank God for keeping us safe, for protecting us from things that seem to generate fear in others. God's love and light surrounds us and helps us make better choices, even as our guides help us with life's difficult decisions. I hope that we can find the ability and sense to show our family and friends every day how much they matter in our lives. I hope that we find that same ability to give to them the love and kindness that they have given to us. I am extremely grateful for all of God's blessings in my life. I pray that we remember just how blessed we are and that we never forget to show our gratitude in prayer and returned acts of kindness to those around us. In my love and light to all, amen. Now I turn the podium over to Reverend Jennifer.
Thanks, Dick. Good morning. You always give such a lovely prayer. And we're grateful for you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, good morning to our friends joining us online, whether that's live today or later in your week. We're glad you're here. So I just want to touch on something before I get into my message, something that came up for our ministerial team. We were discussing our guest speaker last Sunday, Leo, and how powerful his message was and how authentic he was, and how he ultimately became a chaplain out of all of the adversity and all of those difficult experiences. And he's chosen a life of service. And so if you weren't here, catch it online. It was really, really good. So from time to time, we have guest speakers that may be of a different faith, or maybe they attend a different church, and maybe some of the words that they use aren't words that you're used to hearing here at the Home Spiritual Center. And maybe sometimes us ministers do that as well. And Reverend Madge touched on this a little bit Wednesday evening for those of you that were here. And we did have some folks that expressed that they were triggered or uncomfortable with some of the language. So what we would like to ask of you is to the members to remain open, just to remain open. Don't get hung up on some of that language or some of the words. Just really listen from your heart. Listen with curiosity and identify what is most helpful for you. What is most helpful for you, and translate that into your own language, whatever's best for your highest and greatest good. Because often when we sit in the discomfort of things, we really do gain some beautiful and powerful messages. And maybe some spiritual tools that maybe you hadn't thought of yet or tapped into. So we always try to remind you here that this is your journey. This is your path. And you need to do what's best for you. So with that, I'd like to get into my message. And I've shared some of this content before, but I really believe that it's important to revisit this. Many folks that I know that I'm chatting with inside and outside of community have really been struggling around their spiritual path. And maybe it's spiritual fatigue. Maybe they're just kind of burnout from going. And sometimes it might feel like a spiritual crisis. They just get into that space of crisis of maybe not knowing what is true or which direction do I go. And as always, I want to understand and have a clearer perception or understanding of why this happens. So you guys know me. I talk about this all the time. I go down those rabbit holes. I look for information that's relative. And I found an article by a woman, and I've shared her stuff before, Vashundra. She's a writer and a coach. And she has a lot of wonderful insights that I'm going to share in a little bit. So often when we're on our spiritual path, or maybe when we're starting, we resist what we discover. Maybe that's because many of us grew up in a world full of science and proof, right? We need proof. And many of us maybe have some ideas around those forbidden concepts of how the spiritual realm really works. And we don't want to get stuck in that. Or maybe we resist because we don't want to appear crazy or seem crazy to others with the things that we're learning or what we believe. And in the process of that, when we resist, we move away from those truths. So many of us that are seeking have a really highly logical mind. And I know I do. I want to make sense of everything. And I want to make sense of things so that I can believe them. And I remember when I first came to the Home Spiritual Center, I was learning and I was reading and I was researching things that were really, really foreign to me. A lot of the language was foreign. And I joke about sitting, but it was true, sitting in the back, just writing down all the stuff and then going home and looking it up because I didn't know what it was, right? And so, and it had gone, some of the stuff that I was learning went against what I had already learned. So that was really confusing for me and it created some conflict. Maybe some of you can relate what you were taught growing up, even though you have that belief system and you know that it doesn't work for you anymore. But then these new concepts might be a little far out there. And so you try to blend those together. So what happens when all of this occurs? Sometimes we resist. We can resist those new concepts or those new ideas that we're learning. We resist that we have the power to change our own lives, that we're in control. Maybe we resist our own worthiness. And I'm sure the list goes on. Our spiritual path can become difficult or complicated when we approach it from that logical mind. Our minds are limited to our human bodies, our physicality. And with that, we have limitations, like our ability to understand or perceive something that's subtler than itself. So, for an example, our energy bodies or our auric field, our energy field, we can't see it with our physical eyes, but we know it's there. And this resistance that can happen is common and it's understandable, but it can disrupt our spiritual growth. So, all the learning that we do in school, all those years in school, it doesn't usually include in that learning fundamental questions about life or death. You know, what is the purpose of life? Or what happens after you die? Can you imagine some of those questions being posed to us at a young age or discussed or maybe even answered by our fourth grade teacher? Could you imagine? I was thinking, oh yeah, Mr. Fisher talking about, I remembered his name, Mr. Fisher talking about life and death and what is the purpose? What is the meaning? All of that. And we didn't get that. We don't get that in school. And maybe some of us get that in church when we're younger or a spiritual community. But often that education was dictated to us. We were told, we were instructed, and it didn't leave a lot of room for our little growing minds to really explore and find the answers, find those answers, or even trust that we were able to find the answers or to have the answers. Now, some of us explore these questions or attempt to find answers after many, many years of not doing so. It can feel a little uncomfortable. And the irony in that is that we find it odd to be ourselves. Our own nature does not seem familiar. But have patience and know that all of these strange experiences will eventually make sense. So this circles me back to the article that I mentioned earlier. And the author had listed 5 ways to make more sense of our spiritual journey. So the first thing she talks about is building your spiritual foundation, because faith doesn't just happen overnight. Meditating for an hour or journaling here and there, It doesn't cut it. Sorry, doesn't cut it. We can't expect to build that connection to spirit or God or the universe, whatever you believe, with minimal or no practice. It takes time. Just like any authentic relationship that we're building, our connection or feeling of oneness with God needs to be cultivated and nurtured through repetition or ritual. Because when we do something long enough, that's when it becomes our nature. That's when it becomes our natural state of being. And sometimes some things happen almost instantly. And if that's the case, that's pretty special and you're on your way to something really, really great. When we build our spiritual foundation, it helps us to feel and understand the ins and outs, all the ins and outs of the cosmic way. Have you ever found yourself in the place of thinking that you don't need to meditate or pray? Like you got it? Or maybe you get a little bit lax in your practice or your practices. Then you realize that your divine connection has weakened and you don't feel as deeply spiritually connected as you used to be. We can pray every day, meditate for several hours, we can journal, we can do yoga, we can commune with nature, practice rituals or powerful exercises. And then adversity hits, and then our foundation seems to crumble, and our faith shatters or seems to shatter. Then we ask ourselves, well, what's the point of all of this? Why am I investing all of this energy and all of this time and all of this practice if I'm still meant to undergo pain? So our connection with the universe will only deepen with that direct practice and conversation. We have the opportunity to understand the workings of the universe at a much, much deeper level. So how do we build that foundation of faith? As we learn to investigate and acknowledge our own doubts, we can move from creating problems in our own mind to looking for solutions. Creating problems in our own mind to looking for solutions. And sometimes those solutions can come to us through, maybe it's research, maybe it is that scientific proof that our logical mind wants, which can support our faith through logic. Other times we learn, we see, we hear, we feel those different forms of divine guidance. This can help us affirm our faith when we feel like maybe it's shaken or maybe it's wavering just a little bit. And we can illuminate that protective mind, that logical mind. We can illuminate it, we can light it up through spiritual education. Lighting up those areas of our mind that may be hidden in the shadow. So whatever practice or method we follow can be our guide through that confusion or that darkness. And then she talks about understanding the trajectory of your path. Where are you going? Where are you going? And often understanding what comes next can ease that resistance or that protection in our mind. If we have a sense of direction, we can equate it to diving into the deep end of the pool without learning how to swim first, right? Or at least having those floaties or water wings, right? But if we have some kind of guidance or preparation of what's coming next, it helps our mind know what to expect. And there's an importance of learning to be comfortable in the unknown and learning to surrender. And if that feels difficult, we can at least focus. We can focus on preparation. What is next? What steps are we going to take next? And it kind of reminds me of an agenda or a syllabus that you get in school or in college. It's nice to have that agenda when you're at a meeting. If you're in a meeting, you know what to expect. You know what's going to come next. You know what the content's going to be. You have some preparation. And the author suggests that if we begin to understand the symptoms and the stages of spiritual awakening, we can mentally prepare. And it links up with the video that I shared on Wednesday. We watched a video on that very topic about the 12 stages of spiritual awakening, and it was inspired by the teachings of Dolores Cannon. This doesn't suggest that we need to go out and get a whole bunch of psychic readings or anything like that to tell us what to do. It might be helpful with some direction. However, it can also create a pattern of really seeking that external validation. I have someone in my life right now that is dealing with that very thing, not really trusting their own guidance or trusting their connection to spirit. And they consistently go out externally and have people giving them the messages, telling them what the next step is. And they're almost paralyzed now and frozen because they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do without that guidance from this person that they're paying a lot of money. So just moving into that, trusting yourself and trusting in that guidance that you have. And we have that power on our own individual path. Each of us have that power. And we can go soft or we can go as intense as we like. And we can eventually build the faith that it takes to be comfortable in that unknown. But until then, we can explore things without focusing on that perfect outcome or be concerned that maybe we're wasting our time. Because all of this growth that we're doing is really helping to expand our soul. And we can allow that inner curiosity to take our awakening even deeper. So she talks about finding like-minded people. And another reason that the spiritual path can feel so difficult, because many of us have done it alone for a long time, or we attempt to do it alone. Or maybe we don't have the right people in our lives that can support us around it. And the author says, in that same way, don't be shy to share your truth with the world. There are so many around us that are waking up and they walk beside us. I have a personal story of how difficult it is to try to go at it alone, or believing that really people will think I'm crazy. Like that was a big thing for me. Not so much anymore because I got a whole room full of crazies now. But initially, I was really worried about that. And the truth is, even though my loved ones, those people in my life, maybe they don't get it. They still don't want to see me suffer. They still want to see me doing well and being well, right? And many of us have found those like-minded folks. A lot of us are in groups on social media, and which is an amazing platform to connect to. Tons of groups that revolve all around spirituality, and it's a space and gives us opportunities to ask questions and kind of see what other people are asking too. And of course, finding a spiritual community, having conversations with the members, really being in fellowship with folks that think like us, connecting with those who really do get it and don't think you're so crazy, and sharing your experiences, maybe asking questions, learning for others, and maybe even teaching as well. So she talks about asking for help. And our ego mind or our logical mind can have us believing that we should have all the answers, or maybe there's a little bit of shame around asking for help. If we want, bless you. If we want to avoid delaying the process or lessening our frustration or burnout, we can ask for help. Because spirituality doesn't have to glorify our suffering or be about martyrdom. It does not have to glorify our suffering. We can ask the universe, the spirit, our guides, for help. Ask for answers and guidance. And let the universe show up for us. That support can come from many directions. I'm sure lots of you experience that. You read an article, or you find something online, or maybe it's a stranger at the grocery store, or a nudge to get in touch with someone, or maybe seeking out a spiritual advisor or a teacher. And take a moment when you receive that help or that support and acknowledge it instead of just brushing it off as a coincidence. I think many of us are taught that, like, oh, it's just a coincidence. Well, it is. It's coincident. It's something happening at the same time, and I believe to get my attention. It's not just a coincidence. And so we take that moment and we acknowledge the help or guidance in gratitude, and that allows us to retune our mind to trust that those divine forces are looking after us. Every time we see evidence, our faith gets stronger. So she talks about finding a spiritual path and sticking to it. Because we can jump around. I know I did, jumped from book to book, from teacher to teacher. And really, what we discover is they're all talking about the same thing. They're all talking about the same thing, really, the meat of it when you get to it. And of course, the end goal is enlightenment. And there are many milestones along the way. And those milestones, as we're growing, vary. Maybe a milestone for you is becoming more balanced, feeling more balanced. Or maybe a milestone is learning about the chakra system and how that affects you. Maybe a milestone is not reacting to somebody's comment that maybe you normally would have. So after researching or reading many books, you begin to identify a trend, right? You start reading the same things. Wow, they're all saying the same thing. And you gather a sense of what you could be doing. The author also touches on, what we could be doing. Then we ask, once we find out if we could be doing it, we ask, are we doing it? Are we doing it? Or once we take that time to practice and really digest the teachings, not just reading it, we can move through any feelings of feeling stuck. Because a lot of times we just get stuck. The author also touches on another big reason why our spiritual path can feel so difficult. It's because subconsciously we're waiting for a miracle healing. Right? We're waiting for something really big to happen. We see it in psychic circle, even, when folks are really tapping into their gifts, they're missing those little things that are really big. They're really powerful, right? We often feel a spiritual high in the beginning. So when we're new on our path, in the beginning stages of our journey, she calls that beginner's luck. It's beginner's luck. But we spend a lot of time trying to recreate that experience, right? We want it to have like we want that epiphany, or we want that explosion. We want that giant download. And we continue to try to recreate that. But we can remember that those subtle experiences are just as important as those really profound moments. So please don't disregard those experiences, especially when they feel small. Please don't minimize the steps that you've taken on this path. Those are all milestones along your way. And let's give ourselves permission to slow down and allow those firsthand experiences of all the different advice that we get. Take time to try something out for a bit and see if it helps you. Take time to integrate the things that you are learning and then put them into practice. And if not, slowly move to another modality or practice. If it's not working for you, move on. But give it a good go. Really give it a good go. And also just remembering that not everything is not for everyone. It won't resonate with everyone. So create your own mix of spiritual tools. Really, really develop your own spiritual toolbox and find out what works for you. Once we have an understanding that sometimes we get in our own way, I don't know if any of you experience that. And she talks about it being like it's the enemy. We become our own enemy and we make our path difficult. Sometimes we just get in our own way. We can begin to understand a broader sense of direction when we get out of our own way. Things begin to make more sense and we experience things with a lot more ease. So, my hope is that this message gives you some ideas or maybe a little bit of information about how to simplify your journey. And a reminder that though it's difficult at times, you're never, never alone. So, let's keep moving forward. Just keep taking those steps and allow the universe to show up for us, trusting in our own strengths, our own truths, our inner knowing, having faith that we are fully supported and enveloped by the love of our Creator. And so, with that, I'd like to move us into a little meditation. So, I invite you to adjust in your seats, kick your shoes off if that feels good, plant your feet firmly on Mother Earth, sitting nice and tall, taking a nice deep breath in and a big exhale out. And another nice deep breath in, really filling your lungs, expanding your lungs. And on your exhale, just releasing any stagnant energy, any dense energy. And begin to find your own natural rhythm of breath. Take a moment to appreciate where you are right now. Appreciation for all that you have come through, all that you have overcome, the growth, the healing, knowing that you are right where you need to be in this moment. Opening up, remaining open to spirit and all the support that we have here, all the support we have beyond the veil. And I invite you to place your hands or your hand on your heart. And take a moment to honor yourself, love on yourself. Breathe into your heart space. Allow your heart to expand. Feel the perfection that you are. Feel the truth of your wholeness. And allow that feeling of love to radiate, starting at the top of your head, all the way down to the tips of your toes. Allow that love to circulate outside of the physical body, surrounding you completely, circulating in your auric field. Breathe that love in again. And as you exhale, notice the feeling of peace and grace. With that open heart, allow the love and guidance of Spirit to flow to and through you. Breathe into that. And as you begin to bring yourself back to this now time and space, carry forward or bring with you those feelings of unconditional love, the love that you have for yourself. Allowing that love to be present in every aspect of your life. Letting it be a reminder that you are loved and supported. And gently come back to this room, wiggling your toes, maybe rubbing your hands together. And just open your eyes when you're ready. right, you know this is the favorite part of the day for me. We get you all relaxed and full of love, and then we pass the offering basket. So we are really grateful for whatever you're able to give, whether that's in the form of money, your service, your love, your prayers. And we know that all of those things support the Home Spiritual Center in the most perfect way. So just put that between your hands, your gift, your prayer, your service, whatever it is, and charge that up and know that we will receive the blessing of it, as well as the Home Spiritual Center being able to continue to be here for many, many years to come. And we're so grateful. And we know what you are able to give will also come back to you and bless you in the most perfect way. And we say this in deep gratitude. Amen. And I'll invite Mr. Walker up to close us out.
No thoughts for today. I'm changing the format. We're going to wing it. I was sick for Father's Day, and I had a special Home Center Comedy Central joke to tell. And so I'm going to tell it today. Do I have anybody in here that plays golf or watches it? Nobody? Okay, this will fall on deaf ears soon. But Moses and Jesus and a silver-haired elderly gentleman are going to play golf. The hole they're playing is a par 4. The tee box is set up so you have to go across the lake, all the way across the lake, to get to the fairway. The first man up is Moses. He gets up, squares his shoulders, takes a deep breath, takes a swing. He connects nice with it. Click. And it's going right for the middle of the lake. He throws his arms up and parts the water on the lake. And the ball falls right down on the dry land. He will walk out and chip it up to the fairway, hit his third shot onto the green, and one putt for a par. That's pretty good. The next man up is Jesus. Jesus squares his shoulders, takes a deep breath, takes a swing, connects very well. It's going right to the same place, and it sits right on top of the lake. So Jesus walks out on the lake, takes his third shot right up to the right up on the green, and he'll birdie par, third shot. Elderly gentleman. He's watched TV. He sees the pros. He knows every pro that ever does anything on this hole has to go all the way across the lake on the first shot. Ball in motion all the way across. He squares his shoulders, lets his breath out, thinks about it again, squares his shoulders, takes a swing, and it's going right to the middle of the lake. And you see the ploosh. Well, underneath there is a giant carp, swims up, grabs it in his mouth, swims to the other side of the bank, jumps out of the water, spatooey! And there's a squirrel running down the side of the bank, grabs it in midair, runs up to the middle of the fairway, jumps up in the air and meets an eagle swooping down, picks up the ball from, goes 40 foot up in the air and lets go of the ball. And a beautiful arc, right into the cup, a hole in one. Well, it's not over yet. See, Jesus smiles and looks back over his shoulder and says, "Nice shot, Dad."
That's a good one.
Father's Day. Okay, let's get serial here now. My closing prayer, this is a special one. This is from Frank Fools Crow, Old Lord of the Holy Men, Ceremonial Chief, and Medicine Man of the Lakota Nation. This is history. Be one in unity. And this is his prayer. Give us a blessing so that our words and actions be one in unity, and that we be able to listen to each other in so doing. we shall, with good heart, walk hand in hand to face the future. In the present of the outside, we are thankful for many blessings. I make my prayers for all people, the children, the women, and the men. I pray that no harm will come to them, and that on the great Island here there be no war, that there be no ill feelings among us. From this day on, may we walk hand in hand. So be it. Amen. To those of you watching on Facebook Live and YouTube, that ends our Sunday service. See you on the first tee. Home out.